Dun 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 dun. 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 And you know what's crazy is we never really know, or we never really appreciate it up until it has passed. Remember, like when we lived around the time when Michael Jackson was doing his thing, we never really appreciated him up until he died. Like Michael Jackson was as big as he was without social media.
Yeah, true.
Like people used to faint. Did you used to watch those concerts?
Yep.
Incredible.
We're still talking about LeBron James, right? Do you watch basketball, Mr. Tembo?
Occasionally. When a small snippet actually comes on CNN or something.
That's not watching basketball.
Well, but big congratulations to LeBron James for becoming the highest, right?
Yeah.
And is it the youngest as well?
The youngest, at 38.
Yeah. I think I watch sport pretty much the way Mr. Tembo does. Highlights.
Yeah.
It's the way I watch soccer as well. Just the highlights.
I couldn't care about soccer. But cricket, though, I'm loyal to cricket.
He shocked me so much, Mr. Tembo, last week when we were by
Sarova
Hotel last week, and cricket comes on, and the way he was analyzing the game, I have no idea what the scores look like.
And it's quite a complex game for lay people.
Yeah.
I think it requires a bit of effort to really understand it.
There's too much going on.
The technical aspects of it.
Yeah, there's too much going on.
Not really. You just need to pay attention to it.
One day, when I grow up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Had you finished college?
Had I finished college, I would have followed
You
that sport.
probably would have understood cricket. So this one dropped out of college.
Today we have PEP, President Patriots for Economic Progress.
Yes.
Yeah?
There's just one letter missing in that, like PEP, which is like an R.
Patriots for Economic Progress. No. And it would have been PrEP.
There you go, PrEP.
You're so silly. It's
took you long enough.
Mr. Sean Tembo. Welcome to That Said podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I liked how when we met last week, you told me that you actually follow. What has been a favorite episode so far?
Oh, does he?
Well, I follow snippets. I saw the one you did with Chilfatari,
right,
and a few other people.
It had to be the one that's very political. and you and Tayali have a lot in common anyway. You're always attacking the president. What's that about?
And they've got beautiful wives.
Wives, yes.
Well, with Chilufia, maybe.
I agree.
With Chilufia, maybe it's had. Well, he's saying she left.
Chilufia's wife left.
He said that on his platform, on his Facebook.
Well, she could be back, so maybe it could be ahead. Yeah. But what's that about? You and Chilufia always attacking the president.
Well, we are not really attacking the president. We actually, I can't speak for Chilufia, but for me, I'm always advising the president because I feel that the president can benefit from advice from the citizens as opposed to us just keeping quiet even if he's not doing things properly. The challenge that is there is that most of the people who support the president, they are averse to advice. So when you advise them, they feel like you are criticizing them. There's a difference between advising somebody and criticizing somebody, because if you tell someone to say what you're doing is wrong, you should have done it like this, you are offering an alternative of what it could have been. That's advice. If you just condemn someone, that's criticism. So for us, we actually advise the government. We don't criticize them.
But so I will tell you this. I think you are in the wrong profession. Stand-up comedy? Jesus, I go onto your page, I die laughing. You're funny. I'm not the first person to tell you this, right?
Well, I actually don't manage my page 100%.
Other people post that?
Yes, I've got a media team.
Oh, they're funny then.
Yeah. So I contribute about 30, maybe to 40% of the content. So when you see a lot of detailed analysis, that's me. If you see a question and answer session, that's me. The rest of it, to keep the page alive and so on and so forth, my media team does that.
So who was calling the president Vasco?
That's my media team. That's my media team, yeah.
Oh, is it because of the travels and all that? Yeah, I remember somebody did that.
You remember that, right?
Speaking of which.
Wait, so here's what I want to find out. And right out the gate, there's a couple of things about you that I need to know, right? You have people that are in opposition so my question is in two parts. So the first one is you've got people that are in opposition who you ask them about their values, their beliefs, what the party stands for, and they have to articulate what their party or their mandate is. And you have those that whatever the current government is for, they're going to be against. So whatever you're doing in opposition, I'm just going to oppose that. You know what I mean? So I don't know, because I've seen a lot of criticism of what he's done wrong, A, B, C, and D. Do you have anything that you feel, okay, so if he's doing this, we might actually be able to make it better by doing it this way, and my party stands for A, B, C, and D?
Actually, Elson, for us as a party, we are the only political party in this country that actually prepares and presents an alternative national budget. And we've been doing that for the past 5 years. So an alternative budget is simply where you're saying, okay, these are the economic policies that government wants to implement this coming year. This is what they've implemented in the past year. This is why we believe these economic policies are not right given the circumstances at hand. And this is what we believe should be implemented. So that's a very detailed, technical way of providing alternative solutions. So as a party, and even as an individual, opposition leader, I can actually be accused of a lot of things. But one thing that I can never be accused of is not providing enough alternative solutions to the government of the day. Because for us, we don't just talk about alternative solutions on the media, like other opposition leaders, where they just scratch on this, scratch on that when they're on TV or on media. We actually produce a document, a 50-page document every year, which we submit to various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Finance. So that is the most comprehensive way of providing alternative solutions that any opposition leader can actually do.
So, I feel like a lot of the time it is easier to criticize when you're not in office. There's a lot of moving parts that you might then notice, that you might feel, or that you might encounter once you get into that office or into that seat.
There's an aspect of truth to that. Of course, when you look at things in retrospect, you'll find that, you believe that you could have done something 100%, perfectly. The same with, when you're on the bench, even when it comes to soccer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's that aspect of it. You might not understand all the nitty-gritties of what it takes to manage an economy or what it takes to manage a government. But the bottom line is that, from where you stand, that is why for us, when we provide advice, we provide it from our standpoint.
Right.
And we don't impose our advice on the government. We give it to them so that if they want to discuss it further, they can revert to us and get clarifications and maybe allow us to put it into better context, assuming we've misunderstood something. So when we provide our advice, we don't provide it with the mentality of being holier than thou, that we are better than the people we are providing advice to. We just tell them, say, look, from our standpoint, what you are doing, going on the IMF route, putting this country on an IMF program, we believe it is wrong. And we believe it is wrong because of ABCD. So it is up to them, if they feel our reasons are not valid enough, it is up to them to engage us and solicit further explanation on the points we've raised. You understand? So we don't adopt a holier than thou kind of approach where we say we are better than these guys because we have these solutions, they don't have them, no.
Still speaking of what you post on Facebook, there's a lot of comedy there. Are you standing in 2026?
I wouldn't call it comedy. I would call it humor. There's a difference between humor and comedy.
I'm heading somewhere with that.
Okay.
But you're standing in 2026, right?
Definitely.
All right, cool. So call it humor, call it comedy, whatever we're going to call it. But there's a lot of that going on your page.
Yeah.
And building up to 2026, there are a lot of people not taking it seriously. But like Elson said in his preamble, he said, you're a funny man.
You know,
Do you hope people are actually going to vote based on what you're posting on your Facebook page?
Karenga, different people have different approaches to doing different things.
Right.
You understand? The way you guys do your Z podcast.
Yeah.
Someone will say, but why do you do it like this? You should have done it like that. That's them and this is you.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So the same applies with politics. There are a lot of political leaders out there and they've got different approaches to politics. You've got people who literally only visit villages because they believe that that is where the most potential for mobilization lies. You understand? There are people who are always on radio stations gallivanting from one station to the other because they believe that's the most effective way of mobilizing the people. And then there's us who have our own approach. And the funny thing is that the people who are more concerned about our approach to politics are our opponents in the UPND. They always complain about how we are not going to attract enough supporters because of our approach to politics. But they are our adversaries. So why are they having sleepless nights? Because our political strategy, they feel, is not effective enough. So that should tell you something. To me, it tells me that actually our political strategy is too effective that they are worried. Otherwise, if our political strategy was not effective enough, they wouldn't be talking about it. They wouldn't be spending sleepless nights worrying about how ineffective it is. You understand?
Yeah.
I don't know if you get my point.
Yeah, I do get your point.
Yes.
But do you feel like you're strong opposition right now?
We are. You must understand that when you go to our page has got a mixture, actually, of posts. You know, when you look at the electorate, there are different types of groupings that make up the overall electorate. You've got people who are religious, very religiously inclined. You've got people who are very traditional and conservative in their values. You've got the youth. You've got the women. You've got the working class. You've got intellectuals. So you've got a very diverse grouping, which you need to engage and whose support you need to, solicit. So at the end of the day, you can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach where you only do one thing and you hope to engage all the masses. That is why for us, when you go to our page, if you want the most analytical articles regarding the economy or any aspect of governance, you go to our page. You'll find it there, at least twice a week. You understand? If you want engagement in terms of checks and balances, holding the government of the day accountable, explaining how the government is doing something wrong, how they are stealing money by awarding contracts to companies where the president is affiliated, like that award of a contract to Africa Life. You find it on our page. If you want some humor, you find it on our page. So we try to accommodate as many, diverse groupings as possible. That is our approach. And talking about humor, you must understand that life, by its very nature, is very, I don't know what the right word is. I guess burdensome would be okay. People have got a lot of worries. People have got financial challenges. People have got relationship problems. People have got family problems. You understand? So you can't always be too serious in your engagement with the people because they already have too many serious other issues that they're dealing with. So when you add some humor, it makes it more palatable for them to really embrace your points. Every time we add some humor, it's not just humor, standalone humor. There is always a point there we are trying to advance. If we call President Hichilema Vasco da Gama, it is because we are trying to emphasize the point that he is always traveling out and, wasting taxpayers' money. So there is a technical aspect of it. There's some value in it, but we try to make it palatable so that people can find it easy to assimilate it.
How confident are you in winning the next election, though?
We are confident. We are very confident because of the current political terrain. When you look at the main players at the moment, who are essentially the UPND, who are the ruling party, I think they've disappointed a lot of people. And the PF were kicked out after 10 years. And the rate at which the PF disappointed people is far lower than the rate at which the UPND are disappointing people. And the UPND have got the added challenge due to the fact that we now live in a technological age. We live in a social media age. So the dissemination of information, whether it is about fertilizer being distributed in medals, or it is about road shedding and how people's household goods, groceries are going to waste, or it is about political violence, they attack their political colleagues, or it is about, award of contracts to companies which are owned by President Hichilema. Information dissemination is very quickly now. So that's a disadvantage if you are in government, because people have, information literally on their fingertips. You understand? So UPND, in my view, is unlikely to turn around the tides, their political fortunes in time for them to win the 2026 election, especially that we have the 50% plus one. They might come out as having the most votes, but I don't think they'll be able to have 50% plus one votes for them to scoop that in the first round. And if they don't scoop it in the first round, if there's a runner-up, let's say with ourselves, you can be rest assured that all the opposition political parties will be able to band together and the UPND will be defeated.
We asked Chulu Fetal the same question about politicians and how, you put it well when you spoke about R&B artists and how when they go after a girl, they'll tell you what's wrong with the other guy and not just, giving that girl their own manifesto. Half the time we've been seated here, you've been attacking the UPND and talking about what they're not doing.
Right. Like,
what about what are you doing and what are you going to do without mentioning the UPND? What's your manifesto? What's the PEP doing?
For me here, I answer the question that you asked me. So if you ask me what we're going to do for the people,
even half the time, like on your Facebook page.
Before you ask me that, then there's no way I can divert to that. So far, you've only asked me questions which give me the opportunity to basically advise what the UPND are doing wrong. I don't want to call it attacking. I'd rather call it advice.
I'll give an example, even like you've said, people have information on their fingertips now. And when we talk about information on their fingertips now, it's mostly social media, right? And if I go to your social media, half the time, like we said in the intro,
don't see any advice.
You're insulting the president most of the time.
Do you have the page?
Yeah, I'm on your page right now. And one of the recent...
Or the one that I go to is yours specifically.
Yeah. And one of your most recent posts says, Achayenda ko Namibia pamande mambala. Koma India arrogance zone. I hope how's my Nyanja accent, by the way? It's okay?
So who exactly was being talked about there? Who was being talked about? Wamenaenda go Namibia and then?
No, I'm about to ask that. So who are you referring to here?
You are the one who was saying I attacked the president. So you tell me, how do you know that post was about the president?
It's just an example of the kind of post. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that particular one is, but I'm saying most of the time your posts about that.
There's a lot of speculation.
So who are you targeting then, if I may ask now?
There's a lot of speculation. That's where the problem is.
Right.
A day ago, we wrote an article about law enforcement versus harassment.
After the Shimbakambwili issue, right?
Yes. And here we are basically explaining to say, look, Shimbakambwili, just like myself when I was arrested, we were accused of committing a misdemeanor. Not a felony, but a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So just like other political leaders. So when someone commits a misdemeanor, that is something that they can get away with an admission of guilty fine of 54 kwacha. It's a minor offense. So when you're dealing with a minor offense, there's no need for President Hakainde Hichilema to send a contingent of 50 police officers armed with AK-47 rifles to storm somebody's house because they've committed a misdemeanor. That is abuse of authority.
Why do you think?
So that's the point that we're trying to put there.
Is that
do you appreciate
confirmed?
That
it's
point?
the president who sent them
I was about to say, why do you think it's him that sent?
Do you understand the governance system of the country?
Please educate us.
Yeah, so
maybe we don't.
The people elect the president. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that Kajowa was not on the ballot.
No, it wasn't.
He wasn't on the ballot.
No.
It's Hakainde Hichilema who was on the ballot.
It was by appointment,
yes. So the president then decides how he's going to exercise his power. So he decides, okay, let me appoint a couple of people who can help me to exercise my power. So when the police come to arrest you, they'll tell you in the name of the president, because by themselves, they don't have any power. They can only arrest you in the name of the president. Even when someone's sent to you from court, the summons say, in the name of the president. You know why? Because none of those officials have any power. It is only the president who has power. Do you understand that part?
100%.
Yes,
So
yes. So that is why, let me just finish.
No problem.
That is why when police officers come to arrest Sean Tembo or arrest Shimbaka Mwiri or arrest Chirufya Tayari, they are doing it in the name of the president.
So let me ask you a follow-up question, Mr. Tembo. Is it the president in his individual capacity, or is it his office?
Well, he's obviously using his office. It's using his office.
Because there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So
in his individual capacity, he's just Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. He doesn't have any power. It is in his capacity as president of the Republic of Zambia that he has the power.
Why are we not speaking about his office and not him specifically?
No, that's why we call him President Hakainde Hichilema. Whenever we engage the president on official issues, we don't say Hakainde Hichilema. Because when we say Hakainde Hichilema, we would be talking about Hakainde Hichilema, the individual. Let me just show you something.
Okay.
You understand? We would be talking about Hakainde Hichilema, the individual. But when we say President Hakainde Hichilema, I'll read you just half of a paragraph of our article. You say,
all right.
For someone with whom we suffered together under the hands of a previous regime, sorry, that moved a bit. Under the hands of a previous regime, President Hakainde Hichilema. You understand? So we emphasize, President Hakainde Hichilema is a huge disappointment. Even when you go further in this article, for instance, we are talking about President Hakainde Hichilema. Every time we refer to him in his official capacity, we call him President Hakainde Hichilema because he is acting as president. He is exercising his powers as president. If we want to talk about him in his individual capacity, then we'll call him Hakainde Hichilema.
Yeah, no, I get it. I guess the point that I was just trying to drive at here is obviously you brought up the point where the police come and arrest you in the name of the president.
So there's no need of using unnecessary force because there's a difference between enforcing the law and harassing your opponents. Me, I'm a former police officer. You understand? I'm a former police officer. I rose to the rank of assistant superintendent, which is a senior police officer. I know how law enforcement should be enforced. If you commit an offense, I don't need to harass you, I don't need to assault you, I just need to effect an arrest. And once I effect an arrest, I need to give you an explanation of your rights. I need to tell you, this offense is bondable. So if you meet the bail conditions, we can give you bond right now. I don't need to drive you to Bomoro Police in the middle of Chiranga constituency. I even put a snake in your cell. I don't need to do that. That is harassment. You understand? That's political harassment. So there's a difference between enforcing the law and harassing political opponents. And our appeal to President Hakainde Hichilema is that, please, can you stop harassing political opponents? Can you start enforcing the law? We are not saying that political opponents like myself should be above the law and that when we commit offenses, the law should not visit us. That is not what we are saying. We are saying that can we be treated fairly? Because sooner rather than later, President Hakainde Hichilema himself is going to leave that office. Mm-hmm. Even if he amends the constitution and he is there for more than, even if he is re-elected in 2026 and he amends the constitution and is there for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, the bottom line is that at what point or the other, he's going to leave that office. Just like KK left the office after 27 years. And when he leaves that office, he's going to become an ordinary citizen. And when he becomes an ordinary citizen, whoever becomes president at that time, he will need that person to treat Hakainde Hichilema fairly. If Hakainde Hichilema stole any money, he would want to be treated fairly and be subjected to the law of the land. He wouldn't want to be taken and locked up without bond or taken to court for a prolonged period of time. He wouldn't want that. So that is all we are saying, to say, can we treat others in a fair manner so that when our opportunity comes also to be treated by others, they can treat us in a fair manner? That is all we are asking for.
So which Mambala were you talking about who went to Namibia?
Like I said, my media team manages my page. So I can't remember each and every post and who they were talking about. If you had mentioned I would have come with my media team, then they would have assisted with answering some of those questions.
Interesting. I think now would be a good time to talk about your history. We'll get back to the politics in a little bit. We just want to understand the man behind the name Sean Tembo, PEP. I almost said PrEP president.
Oh, you can.
PEP, PEP president. Your upbringing, where were you born? And where does the man we know today come from? Because to most of us, he just showed up on social media one day and he became the perpetual entertainer. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was born on the 30th of March, way back a couple of decades ago. So my birthday is next month, actually.
Are we having a party? Oh, by the way, we are by Palm Valley Lodge. That's his lodge in
It's Palm Valley Resort, actually.
Resort on Ngwerere.
Don't disrespect them, man.
I shouldn't disrespect
Calling it a
them.
lodge.
I shouldn't disrespect
You're
the
used to
venue.
lodges?
Yeah.
Is that where you have the most fun?
Don't be silly.
Is that where you spend?
Palm Valley
It's
Resort.
raining these days.
It's what?
It's raining these days.
It's very wet.
It's very wet. Those lodges have got a lot of activities. I don't know why lodges are on your mind. You're a married man, sir. Someone has to remind you of this.
Palm Valley Resort on Ngwerere Road, and it's quite a nice place
See,
for
this man
chills.
is exposing the things that he's used to, what he does on weekends.
Well,
Yeah, so let me answer the question. I grew up here in Osaka, just in Mtendere compound here. I went to Shitugogo Primary School, which is in the C section of Mtendere, near Karikiriki there. And from there, I passed my grade 7 and went to Kablanga Boys.
you look like you had very disciplinarian parents.
Well, not necessarily. Actually, I lost my dad when I was 8 years old.
Wow. So
Yeah. And we were 9 of us, and my mother was a housewife.
Did that force you to grow up pretty quickly?
I think it did, yeah. I think it did. So my mother had to basically do what every parent did in those days when you lose your parents. They basically distribute you among your uncles, so to speak. So I grew up with my uncle in Mtendere. My uncle was a very wise man. He would tell you a lot about life, but he wasn't like that strict kind of parent. Yeah, he would treat you more like you're an adult. I remember I stayed with my uncle for more than 10 years. I think about 12 years, and he only whipped me once.
Wow.
And if you remember those days, whipping was a very common occurrence.
Very.
In fact, I used to get more beatings when I visit my mother in that short holiday, a few days.
in that few days,
yes.
that 12 years.
Yes.
Moms don't play.
They don't.
It doesn't matter how big you are.
And it was either what do you call those sweeping things, the brooms, or a slipper. One of the above, usually.
No,
It's
my
cooking
mother
sticks
would
as well.
get a mulberry.
I was about to say those.
Yes, those never used to break.
No, and I think you guys are pretty good parents because my parents would make you go and fetch.
Go, choose your own size.
Choose your own. Do you know how traumatic it is to make a child pick their own weapon?
And then when you pick a small one, they
No,
tell
go
you,
back.
Yes, go and get a proper one.
They say, if you make me go and pick it, I'll pick the biggest one that I see.
So you mentioned
So from Shitugo Primary School, I went to Kablanga Boys. I did my grade 8 and 9. From there, I passed. I was one of the highest in the country. So I went
Grade
to
12?
Hillcrest. That was grade 9.
Oh, grade 9.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So I went to Hillcrest in Livingston. So in Livingston, I did my grade 10 up to 12. I completed, again, I was one of the highest in the country. I went to Copperbelt University. Although I wanted to go to UNZA, I wanted to do electrical engineering at UNZA. But then there were those disturbances at UNZA. And UNZA was closed for a prolonged period of time, I think about 8 months. So I figured I couldn't wait. Otherwise, I would start drinking in the compound and forget about school,
Yep.
This was your uncle bankrolling your education the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're the highest, I'm sure there was like a bursary or some.
So the bursaries,
Scholarship of
the
some
scholarships only started coming when I was at CBU. So in second year, the scholarship started coming. So I was on Bank of Zambia scholarship. I was also on Citibank scholarship. And then I was engaged by CBU to be a tutor for one of the courses.
What were you studying again?
A Bachelor of Accountancy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I completed at CBU. Actually, when I completed, I was very fortunate. I received quite a number of job offers. I had about 7 job offers.
Wow.
So I had to pick one. So I decided to work for one of the international audit firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I went to PwC, and PwC proceeded to sponsor me to ZCAS, where I did my SCCA. So when you do a Bachelor of Accountancy, that time, out of the 14 papers in SCCA, they used to exempt you from 8. So you only get to sit for 6. So I completed those 6. in record time. And from there, I decided to start my own audit firm. Yeah, so I started my own audit firm, which I'm still running up to now. It's called InAssist. And at some point in 2006, we decided to open branches in South Africa as well as Botswana. And then, so I was running those branches for about 10 years, up to about 2016. Then I decided to come back home, and I came to set up this place and concentrate on the politics. Yeah.
You skipped the part where you became a police officer.
Yeah.
I'm curious
so
about that
I was
as
a
well.
police officer from about 2008 to about 2012.
We're in the journey of
Accountancy.
Accountancy.
Did you then become a police officer?
Well, I just wanted to, I love Zambia. I'm a patriotic citizen. And I explored different ways in which I could contribute to serving the country. Initially, I wanted to join the army. And so I figured, it's better I join the police. So that's how I decided to join the police. And I also wanted to have an appreciation of how the law actually works. You understand? Actually, that was part of my, preparing myself to join politics, because I knew that the issue of conflict with the law is a common feature in politics. So I wanted to understand how the law works so I can learn how to navigate it when I actually joined politics. Sometime in 2008, I went to the UK. I went to do my MBA. And I'm married with 5 children, 4 of which are girls, 1 is a boy. My wife actually was my junior at school in Livingston.
Your current wife?
Yes.
I was about to say, we've skipped one very interesting part of the story, how you and the wife met.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I was in grade 11 when she came in grade 10, because at that time the school was just a senior school.
Wow.
So I've known her since 1996. So it's been a while.
You've known her that long, but how long have you been? Like, when she came, when you were in grade 11, you were in grade 11, she was in grade 10.
Yeah.
Is this when the romance started? Or?
Yeah, that's when the romance started. And
So you approached her at school?
of course, at some point she went to UNZA and I went to CBU, and we kind of, stopped communicating for a while. And then at some point we met again. And
Just like bumped into each other randomly?
well, of course, you know where to find someone.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you were celebrating her birthday. Was it last week?
It was on Monday this week, actually. It was on Monday.
So the second time that you bumped into each other, is that when you started dating?
Yeah, that's when we took it to another level.
So at what point, because here's what I'm trying, because I'm not married. I've got a totally view on marriage.
Okay, but you have a girlfriend? Or you have
I
girlfriends?
don't know. It depends what you call a girlfriend.
Okay.
Can you not tarnish my image, please?
No, I'm just joking. I think Lamek already put an LOL on the screen. You did, right? Yeah. You see that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a very upstanding citizen.
Member of society, yeah.
I'm a father. My child watches this.
We know.
Yes. Yes. So before I was rudely interrupted by this college dropout, because I try to find inspiration where I can.
Yeah.
So at what point was it when you met at school? Was it when you met for the second time? Did you realize, you know what, this is
She's
going
the
to be my
one.
wife?
Yeah.
To be honest, when I put my moves when we were at school, they were not successful. They were not successful. So.
Oh, really? She said no.
Yes. So I kept knocking on the door, Yeah.
Very persistent.
Until at some point the door opened.
Yeah, so at what point did you know?
Persistence overcomes resistance.
Was it at school the first time you saw her? Or
No, it was way after we left school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you? At what point did you realize?
That she's the one.
Yeah. Well, is she the one?
You're so silly.
Because we can't assume that because she's your wife, she's
we
the
are
one.
married, so yeah.
No.
She had to be the one.
Doesn't mean...
No, it does.
I'm trying not to swear. Doesn't mean ish. So many people are getting divorced every single day.
Yeah, like what convinced you she was the one? What did she do? Did she cook you a meal that just blew your socks off?
No.
Yeah.
Was she good in other things?
I was convinced that she's the one from the first time I set my eyes on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was in school then?
Yes. Yeah.
Yet
That's why I kept on knocking. But of course, the door remained shut.
Did she tell you? Did she tell you when she said no to you the first time? Did she tell you the reason?
No. You know the way girls behave. They won't tell you no directly.
Yeah.
They'll just be skidding
Like,
around.
yeah, keep trying.
Yeah.
But unlike what he said, by looking at you, I can tell that you must have been a really naughty child.
You think so?
I think so.
Not
Something
in
about
terms
your
of-
eyes.
There's something.
Not in terms of what?
Just being rebellious. Just pushing the envelope. Just stirring up stuff.
Well, you might not be very wrong there.
I can tell. I can see these things. I see myself in you.
Okay.
I was a troublemaker. You were one of those kids that would sit like way back in the class. You would say a joke that the teacher doesn't hear, but everybody starts laughing.
Speaking of your wife, when we first met, that was by Prote Hotel last week, and the guys I was with, I was remember I told you that was on Thursday or Friday, meeting with the Mount DSTV guys. So the table where
Why are you plugging them? Are they sponsoring this episode?
it's the company I'm mentioning, not the products. So
Did you get some money that I don't know about?
Maybe. I'll give you one pin, don't worry. So when we were seated in that corner, people kept whispering, saying, there's Sean Tembo. I didn't know what you looked like back then, sorry. And one of the ladies there passed a sentiment saying, it must be really difficult being Sean Tembo's wife. I can't imagine myself being her because the content that he puts out, if I was his wife, I'd be very embarrassed. How does she handle what you do?
Why would they be?
Well, she's not involved in politics. She's a civil servant, actually. And at the end of the day,
She's a doctor, right?
yeah, she's a medical doctor.
Yeah, and that's one thing that somebody brought up.
Well, at the end of the day, it's about the level of involvement that someone has in a particular activity and the level of interest they take in a particular activity. She doesn't follow politics. So even the engagements that we have, the only time she's reminded that I'm a politician is when President Hakainde Hichilema sends his police officers to disrupt my dinner and arrest me. That's the only time she's reminded that
They've actually gotten you off the dinner table at home.
Yes. Well, not at home. I was having my meal in the garden here, just here at the resort, when the officers from service headquarters came, and although they didn't disrupt me, they allowed me to finish eating.
And then put you in handcuffs?
No, they didn't put.
Did
me
you
in.
at least offer them a meal, maybe?
You don't handcuff presidents, unless otherwise.
Respect.
Wait, so at what point did you enter politics?
So I've always had this, this idea. I think from the time I was young to want to participate in the governance of the country. I took an interest in politics at a very tender age. My uncle he wasn't a politician, but he really used to follow the politics of the day.
Yeah.
So he would always buy newspapers and they would always chat with his friends. And when they abandoned the newspapers, I would always read as young as, 9, 10. Yeah. And then, what really compelled me to take that, leap of faith, so to say, was sometime in, I think that was sometime in 2008. So after I rolled out my company, to South Africa, to Botswana, I started having a bit of money, and I figured I needed to give back to the community. So I started running a number of scholarships at a number of schools across the country. These were, merit-based scholarships, like the top 2 students in each grade I would sponsor their tuition fees and buy them books and give them just a 300 kwacha so the total cost was running to, a few million kwachas. But anyway, as time went by, the teachers began to approach me and say, look, you are sponsoring that student and that one, but those are coming from, reasonably well-to-do families. There's this other student and this other one who didn't come out number 1 and 2. They came out number 4 and 5. But these ones haven't even been able to attend class because their parents can't afford to actually pay tuition fees or buy them a uniform. You understand? Yeah. So can you consider changing the model of your scholarships? Because you are helping people who don't need the help.
Right.
My idea behind that was to make students work harder so they can, strive towards excellence.
Right.
So I began to think about it. And then, we adjusted on one school, I think on the other school. So that scholarship scheme went on for about 8 years. So I think that was around year 4 or year 5. So, before long, they came up with an even longer list of people who were in need, So I began to ask myself, look, I might have some money to spare now, but I'm not a very rich man. I cannot afford to meet all these needs that these kids are, So I began to ask myself, but isn't there someone who is supposed to assist these people? Isn't the government supposed to assist these people? And that time it was the MMD which was in power. It was way before the PF and the UPND. So I decided to make an appointment to go and see the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education. So I was granted that appointment.
Did you have any connections, or it was
No, just on the background that I ran these scholarships in these schools. Mm-hmm. So that was my introduction, and I want to meet you regarding the scholarships that we are doing. So yeah, I was granted an audience, and so we began to have a chat. It was just more or less an informal chat at the Ministry of Education there, at Civic Center, and. So I asked him to say, look, there are all these needs, and why? How is the policy today? Because I can't imagine myself and my siblings having been educated if people who didn't have money couldn't be allowed in school. And the kind of money they're talking about is about 1,000 kwacha per term. That's a lot of money for most of the vulnerable. You understand? So he began to explain to me this and that and that. But what I got from that is that there wasn't much seriousness on the part of government to really, lift the welfare of the vulnerable in our community. To some extent, education had been commercialized, even public education. You understand? So I figured that was a problem with the governance of the country. And I looked at the PS, I looked at the minister, I said, these are relatively junior people. They don't set policy. They only implement the policy that has been set. So the main man is the president. At that time, Rupiah Banda was the president.
Right.
And, so I figured, should I try to sit down and request for an appointment to see the president? Obviously, I might not get it. So I figured, okay, maybe for me to really have an impact before I grow old and die, I need to be president so I can change some of these things that I'm not happy about. So that's how that seed of wanting to participate in politics was then activated. It had always been there, but it was a bit dormant. So it was activated. And then I decided, okay, I'll join one of the political parties. So I looked around. At that time, that was around 2012, 2013, the PF were in power. So it was mostly the PF and the UPND who were the main parties. So I looked at what the PF stood for and their policies and how they were running the affairs of the country. By that time, Sata was the president. I wasn't very convinced. I wasn't very happy. So I looked at the UPND. I looked at their manifesto. I looked at HH, the background, and what they believed in, how they believed they would change things. And I wasn't very convinced again. So I figured maybe I should just start, my own party. So that's how we started coming together to start Patriots for Economic Progress. And in 2015, we put together ourselves, we approached the registrar of societies, and we put in an application, which was approved in 2016, immediately after the elections. And that's how, I became, party president for PEP.
So basically your party is like, 6 years old at this point? Your party is like 6 years old at this point. And
yes.
Penetration, can we talk about penetration? How far... Have you touched the villages? Do people know who Tembo is now? People don't have social media. I'm coming from, I do a lot of business in Mochinga province, Chinsali, Nakonde, Soka areas. Do you feel if you went there, people would recognize who Tembo is?
Definitely. There's no question about it. I travel not regularly or late, because the way I structured my program is that I want to reserve enough resources and enough energy so that when time for, campaigns come, which is sometime in late 2024 to 2025, I'll have the resources and the energy to really go out there. I've always believed that, politics is about momentum. So when you start, heightened mobilization activities and then along the way before the election time, you get tired or you run out of resources, then you stop, then it's like you're erasing everything you did. So I believe that when you start mobilization activities, you need to have the momentum and the resources to go all the way up to the election, election date.
Yeah.
So for now, I'm concentrating more on business and other issues. But in terms of our penetration on the ground, there's a lot of appetite for our party. We have an online registration system, which is on our website, pepzm.org. And it's a self-registration system. So people go there, provided they have an active email address, they're able to register, and then from there they can apply for a position in their area. It also shows the members who are there near their location and their contacts. So it's a self-growing party, so to speak. So I would go on our website, log in, and check the numbers. And I see them growing. I think we are growing, I wouldn't say exponentially, but we are growing at a healthy pace across the entire country because people are able to do it without my intervention. Because this country is quite big. So if I'm going to have to be on the ground physically and personally for me to grow the party, then the question is, how many places can I really go to? And how much resources do I have to go to those places? So I believe that our system where the party is able to grow itself is quite effective. The only time, so we have other initiatives like for people who want to stand in 2026, whether it's at councillor level or mayor or MP or whatever the case, they can apply using the same system. And when they apply, that prompt comes to me and the executive to review it. When we review it and we choose that person as a potential candidate, then they are allowed to start campaigning on the ground. So occasionally, like in Wacha constituency in Kawe, we have that. I think so far we have about 6 candidates in Eastern, Central, 1 in Northern, 2 in the Copper Belt, and 1 in Lusaka. So they will then initiate activities to mobilize. Winning a seat is not something you do during the campaign time. You need to start working on it much earlier. So you need to begin to attend funerals, weddings, this and that. They would arrange soccer tournaments. So occasionally, like about a month or so ago, I was invited to Kawe and I went there and this candidate decided to arrange a soccer tournament and they wanted me to officiate. So we officiated, we gave them a prize, not much money, just 2,000 kwacha for the winner, 1,000 kwacha for the runner-up, and we shook hands, we left. So my idea of growing the party is not where I'm on the ground hand-holding people, dragging them to join PEP, is where there is appetite on the ground and I facilitate that appetite for it to grow into, a more formidable party. Because, I look at a lot of models that people use. You go to an area, you give people 100 kwacha, you give them t-shirts and capes, and you think they are your members. They are not. They are not. You've just given them something to wear and some money to buy some talk time. That's all. You understand? So for people to be your real members, they need to have that motivation. If you look at MMD in 1990, 1991, they didn't even have regalia. But the people were motivated to support this party. They motivated it. They used to allocate their own resources to mobilize the party. That's my idea of a party. Otherwise, if Sean Tembo is going to have to pay people so that people can join PEP, then this project can never get to anywhere. Really.
There's a fakeness I hate about politicians.
Wait, hold on. Before you got there.
Yeah.
Just in line with what he was saying.
Right.
The reason why I asked you when you got into politics is because I wanted to figure out how much preparation and what the discussion is like with your wife and your family to say, this is what I'm going to do. You've spoken about, because there's a lot that happens, when you get into politics, you're attacked, whether by people that don't like you or really anybody. And more than that, they don't stop there. They also go after your family. They begin insulting your kids. They begin insulting your wife. You are arrested. They spend days without seeing their father, etc. How do you, if any, prepare your family for something like this? And do they have to be on board with it?
Yeah. So that one was an issue just when I joined politics. But now it's not an issue because my family have grown into it. You understand? They've grown. It's been 6 years, so they've grown into it. And for us, nothing has really changed. From the time the PF were in power, we were being arrested, willy-nilly. We were being attacked willy-nilly. You understand? And now the UPND are in power, we're being arrested willy-nilly, and we're being attacked willy-nilly. So nothing has really changed. So that used to be a concern, and it used to be an issue just maybe in the first year or second year after we joined politics. Because I'm sure you remember those days. For us, we've always been very active on the ground. That's why I'm surprised when people say, no, Sean Tembo, where were you during the PF? We are the only ones who used to really stand up to the PF and stand up against corruption. We arranged for the 2 protests against fire tenders. We used to drive wheelbarrows in Cairo Road when people were afraid of the PF. Yeah? When Hakainde Ichirema was at Community House tweeting and condemning corruption, we were in the streets physically fighting corruption. You understand? So what we're doing today is not something out of the ordinary. It's not like we just woke up from slumber and we decided, okay, let's challenge the UPND. Let's fight corruption under the UPND. No, we didn't do that. We were fighting corruption under the PF, and we are now fighting corruption under the UPND. So nothing has really changed.
So are you, like he asked about your family. So are your children like a major part of this? Are they your ambassadors? Are they campaigning for you and the party? How involved are they?
And not only
how
that,
is it affecting them?
And what's the conversation like? When you sit them around a table and you say, so this is the journey that we're about to embark on. So be prepared for A, B, C, and D. Be prepared when you go to school, when you go to malls, you'll be attacked. People will yell at you for stuff that I am doing or that I am saying, etc.
Apparently, as an opposition leader, we, in terms of physical harm or people wanting to attack you, there isn't that. Wherever we go, wherever I go, I'm a celebrity. People embrace me, people take selfies with me. And even when there's a small indication that someone is trying to attack me or harm me, the public are able to quickly rise and protect me. I'll give you a small example of what happened maybe about 3 weeks ago. So I wanted to buy some hardware along Chachacha Road. And I had nowhere. You know where a gift box used to be? Just opposite town center. I had nowhere to park. I was just getting something quickly. So I parked on the side of the road. So I rushed into a shop. Then as I was coming back, the council people had cramped my vehicle. Of course, they didn't know that it was me. So when I was coming from that shop, I just found a lot of fracas. Yeah. And when I looked, there were people with reflectors, and there were other people, just members of the public. And those people, the council workers, were literally being laughed up. So I was like, what is happening, guys? So I thought someone had tried to break into my car, and they had caught a thief. That was the first thing that went into my mind. So I got, guys, what is happening? What is that? My president, my president. So they said, so I said, what is it? Bafuno, ku krampirani motok. And those people were literally roughed up. So I said, no, sorry. I apologized to the parking attendants who wanted to cramp. I said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't park properly. Forgive me. And then they also said, no, sorry, Mr. President, we didn't know it was you. And then the people said, so I can imagine if someone wanted to attack me or wanted to attack my family or my children out there, I think that person would not be spared by members of the public. They would be lynched, literally.
I'll tell you what I heard. Yeah. I heard that purely based off what you've just said, my mind processed it completely different. You broke the law, and here comes people that want to do their job. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, that's why I apologize.
They want to do their job.
Yeah.
And then cadres are like, who? You want to do what?
To who?
To who?
Yeah, so, basically that. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people have a lot of hope in me that I'll be able to deliver them to a better Zambia, a Zambia where the economy would be performing better, a Zambia where we're able to get the basics right. Things like, medicines in hospitals, those are basics. We shouldn't really be struggling about that. Things like proper classroom space as opposed to packing, pupils like sardines. That's a basic thing. If the UPND were able to deliver on the basics, the people would not be as upset as they are right now. But the challenge is that they are failing to deliver on the basics. If you are struggling on the other complicated things, people will understand.
Yeah.
Because you've done the basics. People will understand, you're able to do the basics, now you want to work on the complex things. But you are failing even the basics.
Right.
So that is where the real problem is. So my assurance to the people, of Zambia is that the moment I come into office as president of the Republic of Zambia, I'll take care of the basics. Issues of delivery of farming inputs, better one to vakazinkala nanjara because they were lazy, they didn't want to cultivate. Not muntu alima, and then they don't have fertilizer to apply. You can literally see the maize turning yellow. You understand? There's a lot of disgruntlement out there. Why can't government deliver farming inputs on time? Why can't government buy medicines in hospitals? You understand? Why can't government ensure that there's a stable pricing for fuel? Why should transport costs be, fluctuating every day? It shouldn't be like that.
Isn't that in the region, though? The fuel increment, is that not in the region? I don't think it's unique to Zambia.
No. Our fuel is far more expensive than most countries in the region. Far more expensive. And the other aspect about fuel is that...
Are you double-checking that? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other aspect about our fuel is that there's that instability in pricing. When you look at other countries, they'll revise fuel prices maybe once every 6 months.
Right.
Or once a year. So that creates some stability for businesses to be able to plan. You understand? This new approach, this new policy by President Hakainde Hichilema to actually revise fuel prices on a monthly basis, it is very, 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 very destructive to the economy. And the challenge we have with our president is that he's very averse to advice. So no matter how much you try to advise him, he'll never listen to your advice. To the contrary, he'll treat you like an enemy just because you're advising him.
From what I see here, the countries that have got the highest prices of fuel, we've got Ghana at $1.48, Lesotho $1.49, Zambia $1.61, South Africa $1.61, Mauritius $1.62, Sierra Leone $1.67, Uganda $1.68, Morocco $1.78.
So basically, Zambia is...
Malawi $1.95, Seychelles $1.96, Zimbabwe $1.98, and Central African Republic $2.39.
And these are the highest.
So that is old information. That is very old information. This is now February. That information is as at July of 2022. So that information is more than 8 months old. You see what I mean?
Okay, I'll try.
Anyway, you can move.
Another thing that I wanted to find out as well, Mr. Tembo, is I know, or no, I don't, but I suppose that starting and running your own political party is extremely expensive.
It depends.
How do you get money for this? Who bankrolls this?
It depends on what the model of your party really is. Like I told you, the way I understand politics is that it's either people like you or they don't. You understand? When you look at Chiluba in 1990, how much money did Chiluba have?
Nothing.
But he managed to run a very successful campaign. Yeah. Why? Because people liked him.
And people want to change.
If you look at the way politics has been done in the recent past, most of the leaders we've had in the recent past have literally just imposed themselves on the people. They were not fully liked by the people. If even UPND, if they do a rally in Mandevu today, if they are not paying 100 kwachas to people who are attending and giving them free transport to pick them from where they are, that rally will be attended by, how many people? 0 people. You understand? During the time of Chiluba, when they convene a rally...
like that number, huh?
Yes, it's a very important number. during Chirua's time, when they convened a rally, people would move from all sides of the city to go and attend that rally because he was liked. And that's the kind of politics that I practice. When I go out there, like I was in Kavaramanja, which is in Ruangwarulo, just a few weeks ago. You go there, people actually cook food for you and your entourage. We had 2 vehicles. They cook food for you and your entourage. They arrange where you sleep. One of the houses, everybody vacates and they put some extra beds there and say, our president Mzago now. You understand? Everything is provided to you. When you are living now, it's now just up to you and the goodness of your heart.
Something.
Yes. Not whereby you go there, they can't even give you water. No, President, something to Gureman's. You are chairing a meeting and your structures can't even give you water to drink unless you produce money. Then you are not running a prospective political party. So for me, I believe there is that momentum. People love Tembo. They love Tembo. And they are willing to facilitate for Tembo to eventually rise to become president of the Republic of Zambia.
I hear that, but that still doesn't answer my question, which is, once you get to...
Who bankroll's the party?
Yes,
it is well-wishers.
Because you need to get to the point where you hold a rally.
Yeah.
For you to get there, there's transport, there's marketing, there's all these logistics.
Yes.
This is why I'm saying that where do you get the money to do all this?
Well-wishers. Well-wishers always put up something.
And do you feel it is right, or it should be in the public's interest to know who these well-wishers are?
There are a lot. There are a lot of well-wishers. So you're not talking about one person. So this one will give you a 2 kwacha here, that one will give you a 50 kwacha there, that one will give you... And, because I don't usually go out much. I don't go out there much. But every time I go out, there's something that I encounter which is always a surprise to me. You understand? So like the other day, I went to the High Court. I wanted to get some documents done, just the High Court of Lusaka here. And I was parking. And in addition to the selfies that everybody would want to take with you, this man just ran up to me, introduced himself. Oh, he's a counsel, actually, a lawyer. So he was wearing the usual. Yeah, you know what? We love the checks and balances you are providing. You're able to understand things and explain them in a manner that is easy to understand to a common man. I just wanted to contribute to your effort. So he gave me some money, on the hand. So I was rushing to go inside the court premises. So I just got that money and I put it in my jacket and I went in there. And then when I was done with that, as I was driving into town, I remembered, someone had given me some money. And, in my mind, when someone gives you money, you just estimate based on how it feels in the hand. So you just estimate to say, if these are 100 kwachas, then this should be either a 3-pin to 5-pin. You understand?
So it was pretty thick.
Well, yeah. If it's 50s, then, you just... in the back of the mind, yes.
Yeah.
So when
you do your budget.
Yes. Kind of. So
I'm going to surprise the wife with flowers today.
I know, right? When I reached the traffic lights, so I put out the money. And I found it was actually 2,000 of crisp notes. Not 2,000 kwacha, but $2,000.
No.
Yeah. So I was like, wow. So this is a measure of how much faith some people have in Tembo.
$2,000?
Yes. So I said, thank you so much. I didn't even, the gentleman was rushing into court. I didn't even catch his name.
Yeah.
I just remember he was wearing Rigo guns. I didn't even get his number for me to
call him and say thank you. Yeah.
So it struck
that
me.
wasn't Simon, was it? What's his name? The lawyer.
Simon Mlenga Mwila. Was
no,
it
no.
Simon? If it was you, you can.
No. No, it wasn't.
We also want a golden handshake. Want a golden handshake.
So sometimes you have this obligation on you. maybe you wanted to postpone doing something, or you wanted to postpone a trip, going to check on your structures. So when that happens, you realize that there are just too many people who have a lot of hope in you. And you don't want to let them down.
Right.
You want to do whatever you're doing, provide the checks and balances you're providing in the best way possible, so that you don't let down the people that actually have a lot of trust and faith in you. You know?
So do you still have this money?
Yeah, most of it.
I'm kind of running low on fuel, hey?
It's with my treasurer.
With the new prices?
I handed it all to my treasurer. Unless we call him.
Before we talk about the previous elections, I'd love to talk about something that you mentioned, and I'm happy you brought it up, because I was going to ask a different way, but I'm glad you brought up the issue of, you're sending people to attend funerals and, whatever issues. And I like that you mentioned funerals, because I saw this a lot.
You like that he mentioned funerals?
Yes, it brings...
Why do you like funerals?
I don't like funerals. I like that he brought up the issue of funerals, because it brings back so many memories of the past election and the months building up to it.
Were there funerals there?
Yes. So I was living in Nakonde at this time, and that period between January to that August of 2016, the past election, 2016.
2021.
Every councillor, every MP, whoever was standing was attending funerals and buying coffins for everyone. I understand you're trying to get the favor of the people and get those votes. But are you going to lie to us, like other politicians, about how you are no different, even after the elections, even if you don't win, you still be a person of the people, and you still buy, coffins and supply food at funerals and things like that? Because for me, it's very
Are you just trying to ask the man for money? Just
no.
come out and ask.
I just want to hear from him. If he's going to lie to us, like every other politician, about how different he is, he'll buy coffins at this funeral before elections, but even after elections, he's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, for me, the way I practice my charity is usually in a very thoughtful way. You understand? So, like most of the time when we assist with funerals, it would be in cases where the funeral is very tragic. Like it just happened from nowhere, such that even the family was obviously caught unawares. You understand?
Right.
For instance, when Dave, you remember Dave Zambia, and
the musician,
yes, and those other 4 guys died in that
car accident. Yeah.
We bought, we provided support, bought coffins and so on and so forth for the other 4 people who were in that accident. One funeral was at Zanmone, the other one in Chiranga, and so on and so forth. And the reason we decided to do that, we actually spent close to 50,000 kwacha, is because, first of all, those were very young people. And then secondly, it happened in a very tragic manner. When someone is sick and they're admitted in hospital, the family begins to form an expectation that this person might die and so on and so forth. And they might start making like a budget of, if this person dies, what will be the cost? But if someone just dies suddenly, like in a tragic road accident, then obviously the family, financially, they are caught unawares. And in those incidents, most of the time, we would step in. There was another case of a road traffic accident where a number of people lost their lives. Again, we decided to step in because obviously, like I said, it was traumatic. And so it's not like we have a budget and we look for funerals and we just, we actually evaluate the circumstances and make a decision on whether our assistance would have a significant impact or not.
Because at times it also then kind of feels like it's only done for publicity.
Yeah, because right after the election, we don't have anyone in Nakonde showing up to buy coffins anymore. Well, maybe now that, I don't know.
And to you,
well,
because...
I can't speak on behalf of other politicians.
No, I'm just saying, this is the common thing.
On my own behalf.
This is the common thing.
Yeah.
And I was saying, and kudos to you, because the genesis of all this, you getting into politics, or part of it was obviously because you were funding the education of kids, and you're not doing that for publicity because nobody knew about it except you and maybe your wife. So probably it stems from that right from the get, you were the giving heart, you were the caring heart. But more times than not, when it's election season is when you see politicians coming out, kissing babies and doing all this, and mainly for publicity. And if people are going to do that, especially for funerals, if you ask me,
It's very hypocritical.
Very,
like I
and
said,
and it's dark because then you're taking advantage of a very sad
Emotions,
situation for you to gain political mileage. Yeah.
Can we talk about the zeros in the last election? Where were you when
Can we not?
Can we? For a little bit? No. I'm sure for you that was like some form of motivation because you had just formed the party like a year prior to that, right?
To speak about the zero. I don't want to do that. But
I just want to hear where he was and what happened.
We can talk about it. There's no problem.
Yeah.
For us, we were on the ballot for the first time. Huh?
Yeah.
We were on the ballot for the first time. And we did not expect to win, the 2021 general election. And, for me, I don't want to come out like I'm a genius, but I have an ability to assess a situation and read it correctly. So I assessed the 2021 general elections, and I figured that this was going to be a two-horse race, between the PF and the UPND. And that, you remember what I said earlier, to say the way I understand politics, there's a time when people decide to embrace you. And when people embrace you, you don't need to make too much effort. You don't need to force yourself on the people because people have embraced you. You understand? So I realized in 2021 to say this was a two-horse race. And it doesn't matter how much resources we pump in. It doesn't matter how much I'm in the outskirts of the country meeting people. People want to get rid of the PF, and they know that the most viable vehicle of doing that is the UPND. So they're not going to split their vote, regardless of how much they like me and they like our party.
Yeah.
So we pulled back. We literally didn't campaign. And my assessment came out to be very accurate because even people that hired helicopters who were gallivanting from one corner of Zambia to the other.
That election.
They got votes less than an MP in Mandev.
Who's this?
The whole country. No, I don't want to mention names. All these people.
No, it was the PF. We saw the helicopters everywhere.
No, not the PF. I mean the other parties.
What color is it?
The other parties.
What color is it?
Even people who put up billboards.
Mr. Tembo.
Let me just finish. Even people who put up billboards every 10 meters across the whole country.
The Socialist Party.
Ended up with less votes than a councillor in Munari Ward 11. And, So at the end of the day, it wasn't about the effort. The people had made up their minds to say, we want to get rid of the PF, and the most viable vehicle we can use to achieve this objective is the UPND.
Got it, yeah.
You understand? So to me, those zeros don't matter much. I know our colleagues in the UPND enjoy themselves making fun of us. But, in Eastern Province, we have a saying that, Chaono mzako chapita, mawa chiripayo. Meaning, what your friend has faced today has passed.
Right.
Whatever obstacle your friend has faced today, whatever embarrassment your friend has faced today has passed. Tomorrow, it will be you. So the zeros that we scored in 2021 passed. In 2026, it will be Hakaenda Ichirema scoring zeros.
So here's a question. So if the objective is to serve the country and serve people, there's other ways to achieve that, which is you could join the ruling party and still serve and still have your input, the same inputs that you're putting in the document. You could still sit, put forces together and still be able to disperse your knowledge that way. No?
Yeah, so when you look at the governance of our country, you realize that the buck stops with the president, and the president is the alpha and omega of everything. You understand? So even these policies, like reviewing fuel prices every month, giving people one bag of fertilizer to share among 8 people, or load shedding, exporting power to Namibia, and so on and so forth. These are not things that can be blamed on individual ministers. I can't go and blame Mutoro Piri and say, why were you giving people one bag of fertilizer? I can't go and blame the Minister of Energy, what's his name, Kapara or something, and say, why are you exporting power to Namibia when we are being road-shedded here? I can't, because all those decisions were made by the president and given to individual ministers to actually implement. If I wanted to be a minister, I would have become a minister under the PF government. But I did not want to be a minister because when you're a minister, you can't determine government policy. You can't, you're a chora boy, so to speak. And there are some people who are happy with that because they'll be given, this
ministerial vehicle,
and given, a house in the Mayadi, and given servants because they don't have those things by themselves. So they'll be excited. But I'm not. I'm not excited by that. For me, if I was ever appointed, and if I made the mistake of ever accepting a ministerial appointment, I would probably resign within a few days out of frustration. Because, like under the current administration, you have a president who makes so many blunders every day. And he's going to sit somewhere there with his mini cabinet of maybe 3-4 individuals. They come up with this brilliant idea, which they think is a brilliant idea, which for all intents and purposes is a major blunder. And then they hand you the blunder and say, Minister of Finance, can you implement this idea? So you have the responsibility now to implement the president's blunder. You understand? Take, for instance, the issue of the IMF. President Hakainde Hichilema announced on the 4th of September 2021 that he was going to put the country on an IMF program. That was during his interview with, that Bullock woman, BBC, Sandra Bullock?
Yeah, Lukwesa
Bullock?
Yeah.
Yes. At that time, he had not appointed any cabinet member. He didn't have a cabinet. So he made that decision personally. And, for such an important economic decision, you'd want to throw it to your ministers before you make your final decision so that they give you their objective view on it. They debate. You debate as a cabinet. That's how you properly run a country. You don't make such a decision alone. You haven't even appointed a cabinet. And then when you appoint your cabinet, you give your cabinet that decision to say, can you implement? You can't properly run a government with such kind of an approach. And that is the problem we have. So I can never serve in President Hakainde Hichilema's cabinet.
But right now
regardless of whatever position he decided to appoint me to.
But right now you have ideas and policies that you feel could, if implemented, could change the course of direction that the economy is heading to. I do not know if you have got a team of people that you sit with, but these are the ideas that you come up with, that you float to the government. Wouldn't it be the same thing too? That if he had advisors that he sat with, that he spoke to, who advised him that the IMF deal is something worth looking at, will be the exact same thing that you're doing, where you sit with your advisors or people in your team to come up with these policies that you then...
Elson, is that me, I'm an opposition leader. He's the Republican president. And we have constitutionally recognized governance systems. You understand? Mm-hmm. And the cabinet is one of those structures where government policy should be formulated and debated and adopted or modified. That's why you have a cabinet. You understand?
Did we have a cabinet then? When this conversation started with the IMF?
That's my point. He had not appointed... When he made the announcement... When he made the announcement that he's going to put the country on an IMF program, he had not yet appointed his cabinet. That's my point.
Perfect. So my question here is, you as a leader are faced with this decision or an offer. Do you tell the IMF to hold?
It wasn't an offer.
Whatever it was.
It wasn't an offer. It was a decision made.
Yes, whatever it was at that point. Do you
then wait?
Do you tell them to say, wait, I need a cabinet first?
I know you are trying to try and imply that, he was time bound.
And some opportunities don't wait.
No one had approached him to say, can you put the country on an IMF program? It was him and his dreams. Let me tell you something. You know the time that we were... Oh, the mic is away. I need to...
Again.
Okay. Yeah, it's more comfortable. During the time that we were in the opposition alliance, I used to interact with the president quite a lot. I used to interact with him quite a lot. We used to have his joint press briefings. I would visit him at his place, we'd meet at other places, and so on and so forth. And we used to discuss issues of how the economy can be turned around once the Alliance formed government. And the issue of putting the country on an IMF program, that idea, he had it even at that time, as way back as 2017. And me, I always challenged him to say, what would be the benefits of putting the country on an IMF program? His argument was that, his initial argument, because his arguments have changed over time. So his initial argument was that putting Zambia on an IMF program would allow us to get an IMF loan at a lower rate, and would use that IMF loan, which is at a lower rate, to refinance our expensive commercial loans, such as the Eurobond. You understand? And I told him at that particular time, say, look, Mr. President, the IMF is bound by rules. And when the IMF gives you money, it's not like a bilateral loan from China or from Turkey or anywhere else, no. When the IMF gives you a loan, they dictate how you are going to use that loan. So when you look at the IMF bylaws, which are the laws which regulate IMF lending, you realize, I've forgotten the specific article, but you realize that the IMF will not allow you to use an IMF loan to refinance an existing loan. They will not allow you. The bylaws don't allow. So you can't do that. I remember Eras Chipim was still in the Alliance at that time, and we had quite a heated debate. So there were a number of people who were on my side, and there were a number of other people who were on Hakainde's side, and so on and so on. But anyway, fast forward to the time that President Hakainde Hichilema was now in office, and he made that pronouncement barely a week after being sworn in as Zambia's 7th president. The reasons he gave to that Rukwesa Bulak woman during that interview was that by putting Zambia on an IMF program, we are going to gain credibility in the eyes of our creditors. Because his reasoning was that when you're on an IMF program, you don't do as you please. You don't run the economy as you please. The IMF dictates how you're going to run the economy. If the IMF says export electricity, you need to export electricity. If the IMF says reduce on the allocation of farmer inputs, you need to reduce on it. So his argument was that it will give the country credibility for our creditors to be able to give us debt relief. That was his argument. It will give the country credibility for our creditors to give us debt relief. But when I featured on Radio Phoenix, Let the People Talk, I challenged the president to say, look, you are a new government. Your credentials on paper look good. So you have all the credibility in the world already. You don't need to be under an IMF umbrella for you to have the credibility to negotiate with our creditors. You already have credibility. And that credibility, of course, is time-bound. The more time that passes, the more you issue funny statements, the more that credibility deteriorates slowly up to a certain point. You have no credibility left. But for now, for starters, you have all the credibility in the world. So utilize that credibility. Utilize that credibility. And then as we speak right now, although the president hasn't been talking specifically in terms of the technical details of the IMF, the Minister of Finance who has been very active on that. But the argument now has shifted. There's a third argument now. And I believe that the Minister of Finance cannot advance that third argument without the president giving him the go-ahead. So I would want to call it the president's third argument. You understand? The president's third argument. And his current argument, which to me doesn't make much sense, but I'm an opposition leader. What do I know? But he's basically telling us that, the IMF are necessary because they have an already existing relationship with these creditors. And it would be easy for the IMF to convince the creditors to give us debt relief. You understand? Mm-hmm. Now, so that has been the government's argument for some time, I think the past couple of months. That is why before the IMF MD and the US Treasury Secretary came to Zambia, the Minister of Finance kept issuing statements in the media basically saying, we have done everything. We've met all the conditionalities which the IMF said we should meet. It's up to the IMF to deliver their part of the bargain, which is to deliver debt relief. You understand? And the challenge which is there with that argument is that when you look at Zambia's stock of debt, when you list our creditors, the people we owe external debt, one of the biggest creditors that we have, whom we owe about $6.6 billion, is China. And China and the IMF do not get along. You understand? China and the IMF do not get along. So how can you send the IMF to go and negotiate debt relief with China on our behalf? First of all, China feels insulted. They feel insulted. We would have made better progress the way Ethiopia did, where they were given debt cancellation of $1 billion just a few weeks ago. We would have made better progress if we as a country, if President Hakainde Hichilema had jumped on his presidential jet and flew and met Jinping in Beijing, would have made better progress than this belief that the IMF can be able to go and engage China and discuss debt relief on our side, on our behalf. Just the time when that year-end woman, the U.S. Treasury Secretary and the IMF MD were around, the Chinese embassy in Zambia issued a statement. I don't know if you came across it.
No.
Yeah. They basically told off the IMF and said, you just mingle in people's countries and yet you don't have tangible solutions for them. You know why they issued a statement? The Chinese embassy was responding to a statement by the IMF MD which said, where she said that China needs to do its part to deliver debt relief. So clearly you can see that instead of the IMF sitting on a roundtable discussion like this with China and negotiating debt relief on our behalf as expected by President Hakainde Hichilema, the IMF are not even able to sit on the same table with China. They are talking to China through the media. And China is responding to them through the media. How can you achieve debt relief like that?
That's interesting.
Don't we have like a TV or a fridge that we can give to China for collateral? But here's what I want to find out though. Like in layman's terms, what we currently have with the IMF versus possibly not even getting financing or debt from the IMF, how then does that affect Kalenga or the average person? Because I wanted to get to the bottom line, where it comes down to the prices on the shelf, the availability of goods, the price of fuel, people being able to take their kids to schools that they want to, etc. So if we can break it down, because what you're saying, I totally understand it, and anybody with half a brain could. But for those people that don't really care about IMF and the rest of it, what they are concerned about is, can I go in and buy food? How then does that trickle down to the normal folk?
Yeah, so essentially, the challenge that we have is that an IMF program, it's a total package, so to speak. It's a total package, and there's an aspect where they are giving you money, and then they are also giving you conditions that you need to abide by. They are telling you how you should run your economy. They are telling you
based off the money they've given you.
Yes, they're telling you what policies you should have in place, and that presents a problem because the IMF's understanding of what needs to be done to turn around the economy is limited. It's very limited. You know, in any economy, all economies are different, by the way. Economies are as unique as fingerprints. So the way the South African economy operates is different from the way the Zambian economy operates, is different from the way the Malawian economy operates. So it's difficult for me. I might be a financial expert, an economic expert. It's difficult for me to go into Malawi and be there for a few days and then begin to tell them that, no, you know, for you to turn around the depreciation of your currency, do this or do that, do that. I need to be there for years to understand the structural dynamics of their economy. You understand? So now the challenge is that, like this IMF program, the challenge is that you have the IMF, which is based in New York City, and then they are analyzing Zambia based on the statistics. They are looking at, what's the exchange rate, what's the interest rate, what is the unemployment rate, and they are making decisions based on those statistics, very remotely, and then they're imposing those decisions on the government to implement. So it can, even if they are brilliant economists, their proposed solutions can never really work in Zambia. Even if they mean well, their proposed solutions cannot work in Zambia because they don't fully understand the economic dynamics of Zambia. For you to understand the economic dynamics of Zambia, you must have spent a lot of time in this country. You must have understood the different sectors, the mining sector, the agricultural sector, the agro-processing sector, how they are all intertwined and connected together. That's when you can now begin to formulate economic policies and begin to, implement those policies. So, when you look at most of the policies which the IMF is dictating on Zambia, not only are those policies causing hardship to the common Zambian and increasing shelf prices of goods, but they are also unsustainable. They can't work. You understand? They can't work. Take, for instance, the policy of, saying, no, you need to generate forex. You need more dollars in the economy. So sell whatever you can, even if it means selling power. So you are selling power to Namibia, and the argument by the president is that, no, we need to generate forex. Fair enough. But at what cost to the domestic economy? So you need to be able to weigh the two. The damage to the domestic economy versus the forex that you earn by exporting power to Namibia.
At what point, that makes a lot of sense, at what point in trying to acquire the IMF funding do they give you these conditions? Because I would assume that these conditions are set before the funds are released.
Yes.
And it is up to the country to interrogate, take a look at these conditions,
yes,
and see if they're sustainable or not.
Yes.
And if they aren't, then just like you say, there's no way that any government would accept such a policy with almost impossible or detrimental
So to answer your
conditions.
question, Elson, so these policies, like you rightly said, they're given to you before they give you the loan. In terms of their implementation, they give you milestones. So you need to implement out of these conditions 1 to 20. You need to implement 1 to 5 before we give you anything. Then after we give you something, you implement 5 to 10. Then we'll release so much. And when you implement 11 to 15, we'll release so much. You understand? So out of that $1.3 billion IMF loan, only about half has been dispatched, if not less than half, as we speak. So for them to continue dispatching, you need to keep implementing the conditions. These conditions, so what government did is that, because some of the conditions are very obvious, they are very obvious. So what government did is that out of the whole list of conditions, they made some of the conditions public. They are available on the Ministry of Finance website. And then they made a couple of conditions, I think about 6 or 7 conditions. They made them confidential. So they are not available on the website. But the president or his government officials, when they implement those conditions, they will do, out of a slip of the tongue, they would acknowledge. Take, for instance, the export of power. That export of power is not among the list of conditions, IMF conditions, which is on the Ministry of Finance website. But the president acknowledged and even argued that, no, we need to end Forex. That is why we're exporting power to Namibia. Talk about the review of fuel prices on a monthly basis. That condition is not among the conditions which are on the Ministry of Finance website. But UPNG spokesperson, Honorable Cornelius Mutwa, admitted on Diamond TV that no, actually, it is not. It wasn't the president's decision to be revising fuel prices on a monthly basis. It was an IMF condition. So even if they try to keep them confidential, somehow they begin to be known to the public. You know, the bottom line here, Karenga and Elson, is that the only people who can properly manage our economy is us, the Zambian people. That is why even on the ballot there was President Hakainde Hichilema, there was Sean Tembo, there was Edgar Lungu, and so forth and so on. The IMF MD was not on the ballot. There's a reason for that. Because the Zambian people wanted to entrust the management of our nation into the hands of the Zambian people, fellow Zambians. So this idea of delegating the responsibility to run the affairs of the nation to an institution called the IMF is definitely a bad idea. Not that we cannot borrow one or two things or listen to some advice from the IMF. Of course, we can do that as a nation. Even myself, when I become president of the Republic of Zambia, I'll be consulting, I'll be engaging the IMF, I'll be engaging the World Bank, and so on and so forth. But not where you relinquish the entire responsibility to manage the affairs of the economy into the hands of a multilateral institution like the IMF. That is a wrong idea. And I told President Hakainde Hichilema, even before he appointed his cabinet, that, Mr. President, sir, you are making a wrong decision. It will come and bite you in the behind.
Jesus, I just forgot what I wanted to ask. I'm getting old.
Yeah, you are. I mean, 40 is not...
Maybe I'm very thorough, so you're running out of questions.
No, I had... So the thing with me is, the more that you mention stuff, the more that I pick up follow-up questions based off what you have just said. This is not really important, but based off what you've just said, where you said on the ballot paper, the MD for the IMF wasn't there, doesn't really make sense, because when the president votes for the president, they are entrusting that the president will implement stuff that would benefit people. If we vote you into power, we are not going to vote...
Not stuff that will make you relinquish your sovereignty, the sovereignty of the country, into a foreign entity. That's not what the people really want.
I don't see that as sovereignty, though, because these are conditions...
If someone else is going to dictate to you what you must do as a nation, you are losing your sovereignty. You're losing your sovereignty. Even you in your house. If someone is going to dictate to say, no, this is what you need to do, this is how much money you need to give to your wife towards groceries, you're losing your...
Might as well move with your testicles in their bag.
Exactly my point.
Yeah. Now, it's all criticism, it's all negativity when it comes to...
what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, your post and even the conversation here today. Is Hakainde Hichilema doing anything right in your eyes?
Damn it, you're in my mind. I was about to ask the exact same thing.
Is he doing nothing right in your eyes? Just one thing. Just say something nice about him for a change.
You got similar hair.
Yeah. Well, you know, he tries. He tries. The policy on free education is a good policy.
Do we have an applause there?
Yeah.
That's number 5.
It's a good policy. Although he can do.
No. Mr. Tembo, without using any ifs, buts.
Let me finish.
Just something that's straight up positive.
Let me finish. Look, I'm an opposition leader. You must remember.
But you don't.
Yeah, but one thing.
I'm trying to explain to you.
Just one thing.
Okay,
let me explain to you.
Go ahead.
The policy, because if I just say the policy on free education is a
no,
good
but you were
policy
saying
and I end there, it means I'm not doing my job. My job is to advise the government of the day where they are not doing well. So,
but can't you clap for them where they are doing right?
Yes, but even when they do right, they don't do 100% right. They do 60% right. So it's important to advise them on the 40% they're not doing right. You understand?
This man.
Otherwise, they will be under the misconception that everything is perfect.
Oh,
and
no,
I'll not be doing them a service.
No, just for one thing.
Okay, so free education.
So free education is a good idea. But it needs to be implemented better. And the better way of implementing it is to ensure that there is adequate infrastructure. You understand? Because as we speak right now, these pupils are being packed, some 100, some 120 in one class. You understand? The teacher is not able to mark their homework for the entire term, for the entire year. Where is the benefit there? So when you talk about education, quantity is as important as quality. Right now, President Hakainde Hichilema has addressed the quantity part of education. And our advice to him is that it's now time to address the quality part. Otherwise, quantity without quality, as far as education is concerned, is meaningless.
Okay, cool. So, education, what else?
That President Hakainde Hichilema has done well. What else has he done?
Jesus.
Maybe let's start from there.
There's no winning with this man. There's no winning with this man.
Because he's out of the country most of the time, which is one of the things we advise him on. Because, when you look at your job as a president, of course, it's two-pronged. You need to engage, external stakeholders, try and attract investment to the country, try and create relations, both multilateral and bilateral, and so on and so forth. And then on the other part, you need to address the domestic affairs of the nation. You need to look at the well-being of the people. You need to look at the effectiveness of your policies. How are your policies working? Do they need to be tweaked here and there? You understand? Right. So in as much as the foreign aspect of your job is important, it is not the only aspect. If anything, if you ask me, when I become president of Zambia, the way I will allocate my time is that I'll dedicate 80% of my time to domestic affairs and only 20% to foreign affairs.
But didn't we say the same thing about Levi Mwanawasa when he came into power? He's traveling too much. Next thing we knew, the Kwacha was doing well. So much started moving right in our economy because of his travels. Don't you feel maybe the travel is to our benefit at the end of the day?
Levi Mwanawasa's economy performed well, not necessarily because of only his policies. Of course, he implemented a number of good policies.
Yeah, but my point is, you're saying HH is traveling all the time. Levi Mwanawasa traveled all the time as well, especially in his first 3 years.
Not to the extent that Mwanawasa
he did. Remember Sata would attack him over that all the time.
Hakainde Hichilema is making an average of 2 trips a month. Mwanawasa was making an average of 1 trip every 2 months. So Hakainde Hichilema is traveling about 4 times more than Mwanawasa was traveling.
Now, don't you think
you
we
can't
should
even begin to compare.
Don't you think we should give him time to see what the results of all these travels are going to be? Maybe we need to give it 5 years. Maybe.
Of course. Who am I to say no? The people will decide after 5 years. But I can assure you that at the rate at which he is going, he needs to listen to advice if he's going to stand a chance of, leaving a legacy behind. Even if he serves 1 term, at least leaving a legacy behind. If you look at the feedback he's getting on the ground so far, the feedback is very negative. So it's not only Sean Tembo who is negative, even the people on the ground are very negative. Look at how he was booed at Heroes Stadium when he went to attend that special church service when the 7th day world president came to visit Zambia. He was booed by the people. And this is someone who won the election with a huge landslide barely 15 months ago. You understand? Even if you lose favor of the people, losing favor of the people is something that happens naturally as a president. The more you are in office, the more you lose favor of the people. But you're not supposed to lose favor of the people at that rate, whereby 1 minute you win the election with a landslide of 2.8 million votes, the highest number of votes ever casted for a single president in the history of Zambia. Then 15 months, not even 2 years, 15 months along the line, people are booing you in public.
Yeah, well, but
You understand? That should give you feedback. It should sober you up. It's supposed to make you reevaluate what you've been doing and see whether you've been doing the right things. You can't remain arrogant and keep insisting that, no, I'll keep traveling, even if people are not benefiting from your travels.
But to be honest, we don't know who booed him. It could have been people who didn't vote for him anyway.
Well, that's another way of consoling yourself.
Oh, we need to wrap up?
Assuming, yeah.
Well, why do we need to wrap up? Battery's low?
I think we've done quite a lot. Isn't it just 3 hours?
Have you, how long have we been at this?
Almost 2 hours.
Have you heard of ChatGPT?
I've seen it around. But,
we were speaking of technology just before we started when you were asking.
Yeah, I saw it on the timeline, on Elon Musk's timeline.
Yeah.
What is it?
So it's artificial intelligence, which basically is a program or a platform that is intelligent enough to, in quotes, think of questions that you pose towards it and gives back responses either based off something or someone that might have either inputted something or based off, I'm not quite sure the algorithm that it runs, but I'll give you an example where if you read a lot, you can ask the platform to say, can you write, if they say 10 chapters in Rich Dad Poor Dad, can you write the 11th chapter to Rich Dad Poor Dad? So it reads the whole book and then writes the 11th chapter based off how the author would have written it, how they structure their words, etc. But why I bring that up is, as you were talking right now, I opened up ChatGPT and then I asked, what policies can a Zambian president implement to turn around the economy? And it came up with 8 different ways. You always read faster. You want to read some of those?
Fiscal reforms, implementing fiscal reforms such as reducing government spending, lowering debt levels, and streamlining government operations, encouraging foreign investment, diversifying the economy, improving education and training, infrastructure development, agricultural development, promoting financial inclusion, good governance. And this is ensuring transparent and accountable governance can help build investor confidence and attract foreign investment.
So all he did was just summarize by just taking the bullet form, as you can see that. So I feel like technology as well is something that the government might also want to harness. I mean, there's a lot more that we might be able to achieve if we harness and take advantage of technology. Maybe
we can just conclude on that.
Yeah. I think from our standpoint, this country, the Republic of Zambia, we are very well endowed.
That's what she's saying.
In almost all sectors of our economy, we have huge potential. When you talk about agriculture, we have very, good arable land. A lot of countries don't have the land that we have. Some countries are mountainous, like Namibia, Botswana, they are deserts. So we have this fertile land. We have stable climate. You understand? When you talk about tourism, we have these national parks which are very well stocked. We have these exotic lakes, Bangweulu, Mweru, Kariba, Tanganyika. We have one of the 7 wonders of the world, Victoria Falls. So we have so much potential. You talk about mining, we have a wide variety of both base metals, copper, cobalt, manganese, precious metals, gold, emeralds. So there's no reason whatsoever that we should have this high level of poverty that we have 58 years after getting independence. There's no reason whatsoever. No reason. Other than poor governance. And when the people decided to excuse the Patriotic Front regime and usher in President Hakainde Hichilema under UPND, they had very high expectations. And from my standpoint, I think when we started challenging President Hakainde Hichilema in the early days of his presidency, people were all over us. We were being attacked left, right, and center because they felt like we are not giving him enough time. But as we speak right now, we are celebrities to the Zambian people for having stood up and pointed the wrongs of this administration at the very beginning. You understand? As we speak right now, the bandwagon of people who are telling the president that you are doing things wrongly has grown. It has really grown. Even people who supported the president, like John Sangwa, people like Bifro, Brian Wembia, and so on and so forth, have now come around and said, what you're doing is wrong. You understand? So that should make the president introspect. You can't assume that everyone who is speaking against you hates you. You can't. You can't. Then maybe you are the one who has the wrong approach to doing things. You need to accept and introspect and say, where can I do things differently and better? And the starting point to that is to engage the people who are pointing at you and saying you're doing things wrongly. Engage them. Call a round table discussion. Call Sean Tembo, call Bifro, call this one, call that one, and have a chat. Have a chat. From there, you'll be able to pick it up, and then you'll be able to improve the way you're doing what you're doing. So that is our submission.
Biflo met Obama, right?
Yes, it's Obama's charge.
Why are you laughing? Maybe he might have some ideas. Why are you laughing?
Maybe he was told something about how to run a country.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, listen, we need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
2 hours, you said.
Yep. Mr. Tembo, it's been nice of you to make time for us and just to share your thoughts on certain things. And there's other things I would love to bring up.
There's a lot more that we did not touch.
If time would allow, especially when it comes to how many minerals we have in this country and the level of people, the number of people still living in poverty.
We
with
need
the
a part
resources
2,
we have.
actually.
Yeah, I think we do. And maybe I should conclude on that, maybe,
No, I'm hungry.
as usual.
Do we have Red Bull here?
Do we have Red Bull here? Red Bull? Yeah. No.
You know when you ask someone a question and they ask it back to you? Just know the answer is no. Either that or they're about to give you a BS answer. Did you notice how I didn't swear the entire episode? I am so proud of myself. I swear like a
So
pirate.
swearing is allowed?
Oh yeah. it
Yeah, I
is.
mean, there's
Oh yeah.
You
it
should have
is.
said that at the beginning.
No, you're
Just
a very important person, Mr. Tembo. With everybody else, oh man, the F words would have been flying. Yeah. But you're a very important person.
Yeah, of course.
Well, to the next episode, remember to click that subscribe button.
Please.
At the bottom of the screen.
Always.
As you can see, Mr. Tembo would not have come here if we only had 10 followers. And the bigger the number of subscribers we have, the bigger the names we can have. Mr. Tembo, thanks a lot for coming to the TZP podcast and wishing you better results in the next election.
Yeah, definitely. I've got no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah. But you need to...
But here's what I don't understand, though.
What don't you understand now?
2 things. First, I wanted to ask what he thought of from Telemansa and the whole zero thing and the scheme.
When? That's a diamond thing.
Yeah.
But before you answer that, you will
I
answer
think,
that.
yeah, let's go with that for now. Yeah.
Yeah, before you answer that, you've got 5 kids. How old are they? Are any of them 18?
No. The oldest is 13.
Okay, you've got at least a wife. She couldn't vote for you?
What do you mean?
Wait, when a person doesn't, how many votes do you have to garner?
No, I think the question should be, how many votes did he get in Lusaka?
Yes.
Where the family is.
Yes.
About most of the votes we got were from Osaka, more than 1,000.
Okay, so it makes my question invalid.
So the zeros were outside Lusaka. So that's where you need to do your homework now, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Back to the Mtala question.
Yes. Shoot.
What was going on in your mind?
Oh, Mtarimanza is a friend of mine. And she's one of those people who speak their minds. You know, she's confident to crack a joke, and I didn't take offense of that joke. Most people think I took offense. I didn't take offense. The only thing that I was unhappy about was her swearing, while me and my wife were with her on stage giving her, her
Award.
Her award, yes. That didn't sit well
With you and the wife.
Yes. We understand that there are people who are comfortable swearing, but you need to be cautious of who you are on stage with as you are doing that swearing. If she was swearing while she was by herself on stage, that's well and good. You understand? But I'm an aspiring president. You understand? So you must remember that that particular show was watched by, it was 20 hours anyway. It was watched by families in different households.
Yeah.
So if someone is going to swear and they are next to you and you are there also, it's like you are also swearing. You understand? So that was the part. And I told her as much to say, maybe you should have waited for us to give you the award.
Oh, you had the
walk out of
conversation
stage.
after? You had a conversation afterwards?
Yes.
All right, cool.
You could have waited for us to give you the award. We walk out of stage, and then you can do all the swearing you want to do in the award.
In maybe 60 seconds, I'll say a name of a person. I'll say the name of a person. Give me the first word that comes to mind.
You say the name of a person, and then?
You give me the first word that comes to mind. Word, yeah.
Okay.
I'm telling answer.
Word or phrase? Does it have to be one word?
It can be a phrase.
I think
Okay, we'll come back to that one. I keep messing this guy's name. Simon
Mulenga-Mwila.
Simon Mulenga-Mwila.
the lawyer.
Yes.
Hardworking.
Iris.
You said the first
Word that comes to mind.
Word or phrase?
Word or phrase when a person's name is mentioned.
I'm sure my wife will watch this, so I need to be careful.
If you think she's hot, you can say she's hot. Your wife would understand.
Iris is beautiful, so I'll say beautiful.
Okay. Are there names that come to mind that you can think of?
A fellow politician, Chilufya Tayali.
Brave.
The president?
Interesting. And the president?
Defamation of the president was abolished. No, I just want to make sure.
It's an essay. It's an essay to that effect, right?
Okay, the president, headstrong.
Headstrong. Yeah, he is.
That's the first compliment that is given the president now.
Ever. Back to number one.
Back to number one.
Sorry?
Back to number one. Tell him answer.
Oh, Taramanza. Hasra.
Hustler.
Nice.
Let's end this before you get
Till
in
the
trouble.
next episode, have a lovely day. Remember to subscribe once more. It's K Plus and Elson, the other guy. Continue supporting us. We're enjoying the support so far. And apologies for the previous episode. Malcolm messed up.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.